That's really
It is
good.
being recorded, but I've just pressed record
Cool.
now.
Okay, we'll have that copy. Okay, guys, here's the thing. Elliot's right about that stuff, except me being 30. I'm 32 next year. So can you just quickly put in the chat, anybody who was running their business pre-2008? So just a Y or an N, just so I can get a feel for. There we go. So, okay. So we're getting a mix, but predominantly a no. So this is what happened a few weeks ago. I'd been laid up, by the way. I've been self-isolated since the first weekend in January. And I finally got back to work in time to be told we were going to be self-isolating. And the first thing I did is I went very honest with the team. And I said, guys, when we went into the recession, I massively screwed things up. You got to be honest with people. And the reason I screwed them up is because I just acted too slowly. I probably went through some of the things we're about to see when I share my screen, but I was just too slow with everything. So if anything with your marketing now, if there's anything that I can share with you today, it is be decisive. You've absolutely got to make decisions. And if you're in the phase at the minute where you're still in that sort of panic bit, we'll go through a curve in a second and you'll be able to identify, where you see yourself on there. You've got to get to the point where we start making decisions. So let me share a screen with you and have a look at this. So, okay. How do we market through a pandemic? First of all, everybody's talking about it being unprecedented times, and they're absolutely right, but there are things we can draw on, like the recession. So here's what happens. It is when we get the mouse going. The Kubler-Ross change curve. This is essentially what people are going through right now. And that's why I say, if you're in the panic bit, the denial bit, the frustration piece. So the first thing I want to say about your marketing is, before you go doing any marketing, what we need to do is we need to understand what's going on now. Where are we now? And people will be going through this at different phases. They'll be at different points in this. So where are you? Where are your customers along this curve? Okay, once we get into this, what we'll realize when you see anybody, let's say it's in a war zone or somebody's just had somebody pass away or anything where it's bringing them into this change situation, you can't throw lots of detail. You have to be really, really clear and use simple messages. So if you've got a complicated solution that you offer, and it's complicated for a reason, or it's complex, now's the time you have to, if you haven't already, now's the time you really do have to keep it simple. So I'll give you some examples in a second, but simple messages. This is where you might start packaging products. So if you're a consultant who would typically want to understand first and go away and create a proposal and all of those things, which is very much what we do in marketing, now's the time when you'd actually have packages. So you'd have packages to keep things simple. Those packages would help people now and in the future. So if we suddenly start coming out with things that are purely based at how do I market now in this pandemic, or how do I help my customers now in this pandemic, and it absolutely throws away the thought of the future, it's not helpful. It's like stockpiling food that we're then going to throw away when it doesn't last as long as the pandemic does. Yeah, it's absolutely futile. So we must get ourselves into a position where we're coming up with, let's call them packages, of things that will help people now and in the future. And then we have to make our pricing different. So look, now is not necessarily the time for most of us where we're going to be selling our big ticket items. So a lot of things now, it will be, if the sort of pricing model of freemium has ever been relevant, it's now. You know, so now is the time when we have to have a pricing strategy that is probably more geared towards market share, new relationships, building brand loyalty, all of those things, rather than getting the big ticket. So when we look at those things together, packages that are priced right, you know, the message is clear, and it helps somebody now and in the future. And bear in mind, all of this ties back into what we've just heard from Gwendy, where if we can package all of that and use the emotional connection between why somebody would want that, then we're suddenly going to find that instead of no sales, we begin to get sales coming through. So here's the most important thing. We've got to keep the lights on right now with our marketing. This is absolutely crucial, because otherwise, this is what happens. People are out there looking right now. They're looking. They might not be buying right now in the same way, but they're out there and they're looking right now. So let's say you turn the lights off. What does that do to the rest of your competition? Of course, they stand out even more without doing any more. So you absolutely must keep the lights on. And when on that sign, I picked that picture because it says, when one door closes, another opens. You're absolutely right. Yeah, it's your competitor's door that's open when you close yours. So now is the time. I'm going to send a link in the chat, because I created an article last week on confidence and cash. And it's all about this. You absolutely have to keep your own marketing going. So, and then I said about making them burn brighter. Okay, let me give you this example. Urban Media, obviously the main of my two digital agencies, it's the bigger of the two. We created a pub quiz. Why did we create a pub quiz? And by the way, I want you all this Friday on the pub quiz. But why did we create the pub quiz? That's the point. We created it because it creates revenue. Well, no, of course it doesn't. You don't pay to play. In fact, it cost us money because we had to build for things. So it's cost us salaries and so on. We've had to build it. But what it's done is it's helped people in a time when they're feeling, you know, we looked at the situation and said, people are going to be socially isolated. How do we get them social again when they're socially distanced or self-isolating? And how do we put in some, if you like, good karma, whatever you want to call it, but how do we get our name there being a positive light? How do we make our light burn brighter? And here's a practical example of one of the ways you could do that. So we've got to go through all of these things, like understand how your customer is thinking and feeling. Make and it's probably adapted, but make your offer an absolute no-brainer. And we're going to do that through a clear message, something that is going to help them now, immediate, and in the future. And we're going to do the pricing structure. We're going to keep the lights on and make them burn brighter. Okay, so let me take you back to this curve and how it works with your marketing. So the first thing we did, so this is real life examples I'm giving you now. Pub quiz deals with that. In the phases where people are in denial, frustration, and depression, are very unlikely to sell your services because they're in a spin at that point in time. Unless you have something that emotionally connects with them and can help them to get out of that spin, for the rest of us, this is probably not the key moment for selling. However, things suddenly change, and they do change quickly. This is where we bring in what I would call our first aid low-cost offers. So this is how we can help people. We can give them some support, and at the same time, get them onto our customer base, help them, put our arms around them. And then we can move in. By the way, here we have £75. We'll do a website audit. £275. We'll do social media strategy for you, and so on. They're all things that can help immediately at very, very little cost. That's not our normal services, of course. That's what comes here, and that's our longer term solutions. Okay, so just go back up. I want to leave you with those on the screen, because that, I think, encapsulates where we are in our marketing. Any questions, feel free to throw them in the chat. I'll gladly answer them.
Brilliant stuff there, as always, Elton. So first things first, let's give you a virtual round of applause. Yay. So thanks for that. Yeah, any questions? That's so insightful. And I love how this is naturally flowing very, very well. You know, we had Wendy talking about needs, or what did you call it? Not flow. Anyway, you know what I mean.
Fluidity.
Fluidity, that's the word. And now we have really kind of like getting things simple, really understanding where your customers are according to the curve. So do you have any questions for Elton? And of course, if not, then what is your greatest takeaway? What's the one thing or two things you really grabbed from? I mean, I thought that was fascinating. I think I might just do an hour with you at one point, Elton, and just really kind of dip into that amazing mind of yours. I think everybody in this room I should do an hour with, in terms of all the experts. Let's see, make sure you register. There's the pub quiz, yes. Pub quiz, tomorrow where? There we go, loads of questions about that. Get it, showing up is so important. And we always say this, you know, something we say at Speaker Express is if you're not on stage virtually or literally, someone else is, right? So if you're not speaking or being the voice of your industry, someone else is. And the chances are they're not as good or as nice or as caring as you. So absolutely what you said there about if you turn the lights off, someone will turn their lights brighter. Absolutely. Interesting market share. It's like stages of grief. There we go. Very useful, Elton. Running charity during pandemic time. Yeah, that's a tough gig, I must say. So keep them coming. Amazing. So I'm so glad I put these on because I get to sit back and